Are we good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, guys. Quick note to our sponsors. They helped us all be here and enjoying this presentation today. So welcome to Mastering Graupl. I'm Jessica. A little bit about me. I went to university for a while, found out that I didn't know what to do with my degree, even though it was still very interesting, and went through some years of trying to find out what I wanted to do next. Took a bit more education, had a couple jobs, and then found out that data analytics and coding were actually pretty fascinating. So I started my coding journey in 2023 and then landed my first job at Quillfront Labs. And I've been working here since January as a software developer. Pretty sure it's recording. So what is Graupl? Some people call it soft hail. It forms when extremely cold water droplets hit snowflakes and the water begins to crystallize and take on the structure of the snowflake. But I don't think you're here for a science lesson. I'm pretty sure you guys are here for more of the code-oriented Graupl. So let's move on to that one. Why Graupl? What was that name about? So it's actually an homage to Coldfront because of the snow cold theme. So it also is a very good way to reflect what Graupl does and the way it's built, where you can take up a piece of it off the ground, look at it, put it back, use a different one if you want that, or you can gather up a handful of it and use it all. So, Graupl is a framework to help simplify your CSS needs. It is a collection of Sass utilities and components that have been designed to be flexible and customizable, while offering default options through lean and clean markup. It borrows inspiration from Bootstrap and Tailwind, bringing together custom properties, interlocking components, and default options, so that you can get a quick gist of your page as you incorporate different elements. The main thing is that Graupl gives you a default setting for a lot of commonly used components, so that you have something styled right off the bat. And then if you want to tweak it, you can, with very minimal effort. So why is Graupl? Well, created. Graupl was created when Tailwind CSS looked like a very good option, but it didn't fit too well into Drupal. And Bootstrap's updates were shedding a bit of light on a few problems. So what was that thing about the Tailwind and Bootstrap that made us itch for a little bit more? Well, why was Graupl inspired by Tailwind? So Tailwind has a lot of great utility options, and it brings those in without too much extra interaction. You just type in what you want, and it creates the file for you. So if you're not familiar with it, I almost pretty much describe what Tailwind does. It allows you to type in the classes into your attributes, and then it will read your files and create a master file, CSS file, for you, based on its own database of classes. You can also add your own custom styling into those CSS files as well, but you don't really have to. You can just leave it alone. And after that, it's set up. So why didn't it work very well? Well, in Drupal reads the files one by one. So it can't read them all together at the start and compile that master file for you. That, and it also has a lot of background operations and database storage that it takes up in order to actually function. So a lot of memory works by reading all of the files at once. Drupal doesn't really do that. But utility is amazing. We want that. Moving on to Bootstrap now. Bootstrap was also inspiration for Graupl through all of the JavaScript and ready-made components, as well as their custom properties. So Bootstrap gives you a really quick way to pull together a style without too much fuss, and it also offers a lot of flexibility. It's been around for quite some time too, so therefore it has a huge library, great components. However, you need to pretty much import the entire library, unless you're very familiar with exactly which files are needed for specific components. And even then, it's a lot of work, and you might as well just import everything. because Bootstrap has been around for so long as well, it does have an expansive repertoire of all of those components, but that also means that it has a lot of old code kicking around. So it has a mix of old and new CSS that kind of doesn't support custom properties in the way that you might want them to work. And sometimes they don't even work at all. Well, this was a bit of a disappointment at this realization, and it helped to make up some minds. We wanted Bootstrap, and we didn't want the uncertainty and the chaining of different CSS or Sass pathways just to make one component work as we wanted. Graupl was born. So how does Graupl deal with this situation? Well, Graupl was built with Drupal in mind. And that doesn't mean you can't use it elsewhere. It is very flexible, similar to Bootstrap. It is built from scratch with modern CSS practices to make sure that when things get added, they can be implemented correctly. And the way that these properties are integrated also makes it easier to grab what you need and not have to load the entire module for one form or one button or another component like an accordion menu. This makes it flexible and lightweight. You don't really have to load anything more than one library in order to bring all of its functionality into practice. So Graupl also gives you two ways to style, through classes and through properties. Now, classes have defaults that can help you to visualize your page without the need for setting up huge blocks of CSS. So there are classes that span all sorts of situations, like layouts, components, utilities. One of these examples is P0, and this means that padding is set to 0 REM, or no padding. Another example would be menu, and that brings us to the second way that Graupl allows you to style, which is through properties. The properties are what help to make some of the classes really standardized and feel responsive to the site. The menu class is created through many different properties, each of which has a default setting to instantly give life to those components. So when you change these properties, you're also changing what your defaults look like. You can also add to the properties and give extra components a little something extra. Add your own styles onto there through other CSS files. And if you can't find what you're looking for in the documentation, you'll kind of need to know what you're adding in. So how do you do this? Through custom properties. Now, these custom properties apply to the root if you want to make them global and work their way down through all of the components, the menus, and such. So that makes it so that you can apply something once and everything else will default to the fallback. Now, these custom properties are what makes Graupl Graupl. These can give the layout a new feel just by changing one thing here and one thing there. Did you want all your buttons for your site to look rounded? Make it so number 1 REM. Or number 2 REM, 0.5, I'm not telling you what to do with your buttons. You might also want your menus to look bright green with their text. So find your color and find your one-liner, and let's see how to do that. For setting up a custom property, you will make a custom property file and then add this property to the root so that it affects the project globally. Or you can add it a class to change just the properties for that class. The setup for the custom property is the name of the project, or Graupl if you don't want to change it, and then the property that you wish to change, followed by the value. This is an example of the root custom property that's being changed. So as you can see, it says root for the global application, my project, menu color, and then green. So that means that all of the properties, all of the classes with the property my project menu color will now have green as their default setting. and the fallback will be whatever Graupl had set before. So this also applies to a specific class like menu, as you can see. So for those who want to use this framework immediately, you'll have to read through some of the source code because at the moment the documentation is intermediate friendly. You got to know a little bit of what's going on, not really beginner friendly. We're working on that. But in this example, you can see what's going on here. We're telling the menu class to use the My Project menu color, but if that isn't set anywhere, to use green. And that's wrapped up nicely in a variable bracket. So that brings us back to defaults and what Graupl provides, which in this example, once again, green. So who does Graupl? You do Graupl. Let's grab a property and see that. All right. So for this Graupl page, we can see there is a toggle dark mode. Pretty self-explanatory, toggle light mode. And we'll start with showing off some of the buttons. Now in Graupl, there are 3 set colors, mandatory colors. So those are the primary color, the secondary color, and the tertiary color. And pink, gray, and blue. And then we have the default button, the link button, and a lot of disabled buttons, just so you can see how they look. Next, we'll look at some form elements. Also pretty self-explanatory. If you play around with them, you see it has some focus, the default settings. Wow, this is hard to do backwards. And all of these are applied. Just if you require Graupl, add it to your system, press and go. There we go. Next we have navigation. Everyone needs navigation. Here we are. It's a nice bar for you. It's got some moving elements, submenus, and your little button at the end for contact. We have our tables, mandatory tables. Lovely highlighting. Remember, all of these colors are customizable. If you don't like them, you can easily change them. Now, if this page gets smaller, this will easily go from side to side, keeping your table intact. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. No, we're good. Okay. So, yeah, we got our columns. Our flex columns. Everyone loves these. But there we go, our cards. So we have the card class, and to add the card class for the top, the image to be on top, you simply add top. And equally for the bottom, you simply add bottom. And it works for the horizontal cards too. You add card in the class and then horizontal. Easy like that. And inverse cards work that way as well. Now we have some alerts. Easy for getting quick information out there and closable. Add some text, add a picture. You have your accordion menus. And you have your carousel. So I recently found out if you hover over this, the image will not move. Which is nice, especially if you like having images with words in your carousel. So get off of that, and eventually it will move again, which, you know what, it makes sense. We have a bunch of lists, unordered, ordered, and inline, as well as that wonderful display flex. Gotta flex. And then we have what might look like a little bit of a mess. It is very easy to explain, I promise you. It is also very fun. Once you start messing around with this, you don't want to stop. So, you have an inner container here, and then the two sidebars off to the left and right. And outside of this, you have containers that have different names. And once you apply them, for example, if you want something to pop out of that gray container, you will have a breakout. And that is exactly what it's called. It's breaking out. The first line right there, the dark pink, is a breakout container. And then you have the feature container, which is the next one out. And the lighter pink one is called full width. So going down here, we have a lot more sidebar content. This was, I think, the most recently added. And we have the right sidebar. Now, I'm going to show off a little bit of how this works for styling in general. So we're going to go back up to the top. And I'm going to do this backwards. Okay. So we're going to go to the HTML, which will give us the global settings. And since we didn't change anything, the My Project part of this is going to be Graupl. And then there we go. It's starting to fill in things already for us. I would like to change all of the buttons on this page to be rounded. So they're going to be rounded buttons. I'm going to type in button, border, radius, A, and 2 REM. And as you can see, haven't even pressed enter yet. It's just going. You have all of these buttons rounded. If I continue down the page, find the next button. There you go. All of them rounded. Now, I bet you're thinking, oh, that header 1, that's like the main billboard header. Why does it look so plain? So we're going to change that. We're going to make sure that it looks like a blue and pink gradient. So I'm going to bring up my VS Code. There we go. I'm going to find, oh no, reading backwards. There we go. Going to find that class for the H1. Now the first class I'm going to use is gradient because we want that gradient. If I press enter, it doesn't do anything. Sorry, save doesn't do anything. We need a color for a gradient, obviously. So we need a from color and we need a to color. So the from color I'm going to make tertiary, and I'm going to set it to a value of 500. Now all the values in Graupl have a value from 100 to 900 in, well, in hundreds. So 200, 300, you get the gist. There we go. So I'm going to type in there we go. And that's changed immediately. And then we're going to have the 2, which I'm going to put as primary 500. And now we also want it to fit our content. So our content are the texts. So we're going to type in for that. We want it to be the width of the max content. So W for width, max content. I keep pressing enter. There we are. And now we're going to clip it. So we're going to clip the background to be the shape of the text. Let's see. BG for background. Clip text. Save. There we go. It looks like there isn't a background anymore, but if we make the text transparent.
You forgot a space.
Oh no! Thank you. Voila. And just a few classes later, we have a beautiful header saved and ready to go.
I didn't know I should do that.
All right, let's go back to this one. Now, after all that, I'm going to show you how it works for Drupal. So I have a mini page set up. It's really simple. It's a page, a view, and well, another page to show off the contact form. So as you can see, this is the Stark appearance right now, the Stark theme. Just to show you what it's like, I didn't style anything. There isn't anything added except for the content. So we'll go to Beautiful Places, which is the view. Show you all that list right there. And we'll show you the other pages. Unfortunately, this won't show you the contact page, but you know, gotta do with what you have. So we'll set Graupl as the default. We'll go back to our website and the home page. Instant transformation. Got all your menus lined up. You have your site logo, all of your text. There is a table right here, and your contact form shows up. Who would have guessed? We'll look at that one last. So we'll go look at the beautiful pages, just so you can see the difference. Places, not pages, sorry. We'll go to the next one here. And the contact form. Got all your little buttons ready to go, ready to be colorized. All right. So, after all that, you doing Graupl. We know we can Graupl now. But it does have a little bit of a limitation. Okay, a lot of a limitation. We're fixing those. It's not done yet. We are still in the beta stages. If you do decide that you want to immediately use this, oh my gosh, please use it, but please give us a little bit of feedback. That would be really nice. If you do find any bugs, or if you think that we're missing a feature and you really want that feature, we can add that for you. So there are a limited range of those components and utilities right now, working on it. As you can see, there is a layout module. We got that. Nothing fancy though. That'll come with time. And yeah, documentation's intermediate friendly right now. You do have to do a lot of reading for the source code to figure out exactly which classes and properties are available. Don't worry. I just started learning Drupal 3 months ago, learning Graupl 2 months ago, and I think it's amazing. I think it's fun, and I've memorized some of those classes and properties, so shouldn't be that hard. Now, does anyone have any questions about Graupl? Yes.
More of a beginner question, but you know how you apply the styles in the inspector?
Yes.
Is there a way to do it in Drupal so I can save and see just for like one line?
Yeah, so you'll have to make your own custom files. Is it in there?
You can't edit it in CSS. You have to make your own feed.
Yeah, you have to make your own theme and then add a file to it.
Drupal doesn't allow you to edit CSS like that.
Well, there's modules that you can securely inject
Core.
styles and strands, but yes, it's not like that.
So when you add Graupl, there will be a long CSS, SCSS file, and you can go in there, add a file called custom properties, and just add it into there, and it'll show up. Yes,
Where do people go to see Graupl?
not you.
Behind you. It's okay. So this is a project that Coldfront Labs is spearheading, I
Yes.
take it?
Yes.
Is the ultimate intention to make it kind of a replacement for Bootstrap and so on, so it would be the go-to modern theme?
Not a replacement, just another option.
Come on.
You're not gonna
But, okay, I understand what you mean, but this would be, like, it sounds to me like you're trying to essentially fix some of the problems that have grown just because we haven't moved the role. You know a better way to do it now, and you're trying to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, and something that is has Drupal in mind from the start. Kind of like
Right.
I remember, oh, that was that other Zen
Zen.
way back when, Drupal 7. That was like another one that was sort of written for Drupal to work within the framework. So that's some of the inspirations.
Okay, so how does this integrate with what Core is doing, like what the Bootstrap team and stuff is doing? Are you working with them in conjunction with them? Do they know your project?
No, but it's sort of totally separate. Like, this would be just an easier way to theme an easy framework to just theme your own theme. Like the core, you could build a Vim theme with this, but you probably wouldn't. So it's not. You kind of need both systems anyways in terms of with what core is doing.
Yeah, it's not going to replace. It's just another base theme that you can choose from to build out your market, build out what you want it to look like. The focus beyond just markup itself, like base markup. And there's a lot of accessibility stuff that really highlight a lot. The whole menu system and stuff is all there. The carousel will pass through your WK. And so the idea is being something that's easy to use and is easy to customize and easy enough and has the accessibility sort of almost handled for you. Even with some of the color switching and stuff, auto contrast stuff for you so that you pass those things. Basically, sort of all the problems that we run into constantly, which is we need stuff to be accessible, we need stuff to be responsive, and we want we don't want to use WXT whatever anymore to do the government or whatever things. We want to use this framework to just render for the government and stuff. So it's solving a lot of our problems, and since we're big into open source, we create a framework, drop it onto GitHub so it can be used by anybody, not just Drupal. We can also have the Drupal side where we got the theme and stuff ready for people to set them up.
There's also a lot of, totally interrupted. There's also a lot of things that are in Bootstrap and work a certain way in Bootstrap that are problematic in Drupal. Drupal tends to do a lot of nested rendering, where because you can stick a node inside a view, inside another node, inside a region, inside that, and then when you're
a table.
yeah, and then when you in Bootstrap you're row full width, and then it's tiny. And it's sort of well, what if I need that one to be featured and break out? And so Bootstrap's well, you should have thought of that before you markup it like that. And you're just okay, if I'm using a system, I don't have that kind of granular control on the markup. And Bootstrap's that. So this system is sort of set up to do that. And sort of when Jessica was demoing the regions, those breakout regions, they'll work even if you're inside of other things. You say, no, this breaks out to feature, and then it will break out of the container. So it handles Drupalisms better than a lot of frameworks that don't know about Drupal. But it does it in sort of a generic way. And that's kind of like its reason it exists. Like, because Tailwind does a lot of great things, but because of the way it builds your library by scanning, it makes it really hard to use with Drupal. And Bootstrap, I mean, it's the industry standard. Everyone uses Bootstrap for everything. But it has some restrictions when you're dealing with it in a system that, like, you can find yourself doing, there's easy things that are very difficult to do. And then there's like sort of stuff that is done in an inconsistent way. So this is trying to repair around all of that, where you control everything. In your market, you use classes you want on things, it's all classes. And then you do as much styling as you can without writing any styles, just by setting CSS custom properties and then changing the scope of the custom properties you set on. Which you can do in Bootstrap for like some things.
Yeah,
They started adding that, but like a lot of stuff you can't, and then Bootstrap ends up being inconsistent. For like some things you use custom properties. Some things the documentation says there's custom properties, but they don't work. And then the other things you have to do completely override.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, like custom properties are a native thing that like like it's part of CSS and browsers. Like it's not something we wrote for Graupl. It's just leveraging basically CSS supports variables now. That's what custom properties are, right? So we're leveraging all the modern bits that are baked in the browsers and in the spec, so that save on typing.
Yes.
I use Bootstrap, I'm no expert. Is there anything getting started with Graupl that if I wanted to use it, is there any, I don't know, videos, documentation, something getting started with this?
There's one now.
So
That is the most work in progress.
I can show you the documentation. No? Okay.
So you could go there. So Graupl.dev.
Oh, okay. Oh, we got that domain.
Yes.
It wasn't technically enough.
Yeah, here. I can smell something on purpose. It's,
Oh, it's not that bad.
the information is there. It's not laid out in the most user-friendly way right now because
Does it say
Graupl. It is laid out in a way that we needed to get our developers up to speed with how to develop with it. And so now we are pushing, okay, let's pause that and we actually need to make a documentation site. Like, how do you get started? How do you just install the theme? How do you just use a utility class? So right now, I will not sugarcoat my own documentation site. It would be rough if you're trying to read this to figure out how to use it.
Okay, thank you.
Takes a little bit of reading, but
If
I
you go
figured
through
it
and
out.
Like, I don't see this, and I would like to have this. Just log the issue on GitHub, and we'll do it.
Yeah,
I've seen
Sometimes
worse
it's just getting, because like all the documentation needs writing, but sometimes it's like, but all of it needs writing. Which one do we write? And then it's like, oh, somebody asked for this. Fine, let's write that one. And then it sort of starts the snowball. Drop, snowball, drop.
it starts the Graupl collection.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned in one of the slides that there's no fancy layout or something like that.
Yes.
What would be considered a layout limitation that you can't do right now?
So right now you can set the widths of the, oh no. Let's go to the appearance. So all those fancy containers that I talked about before, the breakout, feature, and full width, you can set all of the widths for them right here. There aren't too many, besides the preset things, there aren't too many other layout.
There is a Graupl components module that provides some layouts. I believe you were in the content authoring presentation. No? Okay, so for anyone who was, there kind of used there. You get to choose
Yeah.
like your column widths, like 50-50, 25-75. that is there, but like if you compare it to something like Bootstrap that has like the Bootstrap layout builder module, where like you like visually see on small screens what you want your columns to look like, on large screens what you want your columns to look like. There's nothing like that. It's very just like you can set the one thing, it'll deal with it, and then right now there's not a whole lot of like quality of life features in the Drupal layout.
Yeah, it's not that the framework can't do it, it's just there's no UI for you to
Yes.
mess with it. Yeah. Actually, that Bootstrap layout builder stuff, like Suite or whatever it's called, I think it's interesting.
Yes.
We want to rip it off.
So, but further to my previous question then, it sounds like you guys, Full Front Labs, intends to use this to solve a bunch of problems in the fullness of time,
Yeah.
right? So you would kind of stop using Bootstrap and all those other things. This becomes your thing you're going to use.
When we can.
It is in production.
Well, in the fullness of time,
Yeah.
eventually it
So we're gonna have.
We're introducing it slowly.
It's an outside about to go live in production with YouTube, and then
And then it'll grow from there.
We'll eventually use it too. Yeah.
Right, and then it'll grow from there. So can you see this solving enough of the problems that every Drupal site around the world is doing, that it could in fact, again, in the fullness of time, become a standard?
Oh.
You know, that's a big ask, but that's,
It'd be
yeah.
it'd be great if it did.
Yeah.
It's just, it's, you know, what gets people to use stuff is good documentation and good tooling. So.
Well, that's then solving the core problems,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Like, because the underlying things, they've evolved, possibly not from Drupal, which it sounds like.
Yeah.
So solving the core problems and making it work better. So my idea of what you're trying to do here sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, good luck.
Thank you. We're trying to temper
There we
our
go.
ambition.
We can take over the world.
We almost got closed doors for that.
Bootstrap's going down.
It was just a bootstrap to this. Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the Drupal has its own set of libraries, right? Within the library, that it has all the components or whatever CSS classes in one library.
So
is
if
that
we
like
go
a
back to here,
predetermined, like the classes and stuff that you just have, and then it's
Yep.
used throughout the whole development?
yep. So you just require that one library, and there's everything that fits into it. You have your JavaScript and you have your CSS all in that single library.
Okay, you just call those classes and then it's read out to the page then?
Yep.
Okay. And how would it work if you had a multi-site, development and you wanted certain other sites that you have within your department, in a different color or shade or whatever, you just add those in there or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's easy to do then. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there a live demo site that you can show us, or the one that you have is just on your computer?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a question.
It's all very good.
Do you mean this
So-
one or
That one, this one.
This
yeah,
one.
with all the components. It is not live. It is provided in the repo. It's just an HTML file. This is only half answering the question. There is a demo site. It's not live, but if you get the repo, if you go back to the documentation site, and you click the little GitHub icon on the top right. So if you
There we
clone
go.
this down and you just drop the index.html file into your browser, it will load everything for you.
Okay.
There's no fancy like run this and install this to get the demo site running.
Click on this and then go to the HTML, go to raw, and GitHub render it?
Does GitHub on raw render HTML pages?
I don't know. I hope not.
I don't think so.
Feels like a security
I
vulnerability.
really don't think it is.
I'm gonna try it.
maybe later?
No, that is one thing I would like to get going. It's just a.
Oh, can you just continue what you were saying? You were saying something. So you go to the index and then?
So once you clone this on your computer, or just download this project onto your computer. All you have to do is pick up the index.html file and drag it into your browser.
Okay.
Or just right-click, open with Firefox or Chrome or Safari or whatever, and it should just all load itself. Because it's
Okay.
it's not like you have to run Vite with an environment to build this, or you have to use Parcel or something. It's just an HTML file that includes a CSS file.
Okay.
What about the
And-
other components, like the carousel? Is that in here or is it some separate thing?
No, that's in here.
Okay.
Yes, I suppose one of the features we wanted with Graupl was not necessarily to have literally everything included all at once, because there are instances where like we really only need like 3 components. I don't need everything else. So we made like a bunch of core components included in Graupl, and then we will have plugins that you can download separately that add extra features. So there's icons. There is actually icon support in Drupal,
Yes.
but it is a completely separate project because that one currently requires some dev work to get up and running, and we didn't want to include something that required dev work to be functional in the main repository.
That did take me a while to sort out.
Yeah, there's no great way for icons to work without a little effort. But like the whole motto is like you include, like if you want everything, you include your one CSS file, your one JavaScript file, and go. You're good. Or if you want to get a little more customized, you just include specific CSS files that you want to actually use. And there's like an extra level where you can compile your own library if you want to take like the bootstrap route of customizing things, where basically it requires you to know how to write Sass and compile Sass. And so you can do it with this, but our main goal was like, if all you want to do is change the color and like the border radius on a couple things and maybe some widths, like why do I have to download Sass and compile it and like have all that? Why can't I not just include one extra CSS file with all my custom properties in it, and everything just works? So that's really the goal of Graupl. You can include the whole library, and then you load one CSS file with some variables declared in it, and then you have a whole custom looking theme without having to know how to be like actual like Sass dev.
Any other questions?